Today I'm going to tell you about color. Color is a characteristic of human visual perception described through color categories, with names such as red, orange, yellow, green, blue, or purple. This perception of color derives from the stimulation of cone cells in the human eye by electromagnetic radiation in the visible spectrum. Electromagnetic radiation is characterized by its wavelength, or frequency, and its intensity. When the wavelength is within the visible spectrum, or the range of wavelengths a human can perceive at approximately from 390 nanometers to 700 nanometers, it is known as visible light. Most light sources emit light at many different wavelengths. A source's spectrum is a distribution giving its intensity at each wavelength. Although the spectrum of light arriving at the eye from a given direction determines the color sensation in that direction, there are many more possible spectral combinations than color sensations. The color of an object depends on both the physics of the object and its environment, and the characteristics of the perceiving eye and brain. Physically, objects can be said to have the color of the light leaving their surfaces, which normally depends on the spectrum of the incident illumination and the reflectance properties of the surface, as well as potentially on the angles of illumination and viewing. Some objects not only reflect light, but also transmit light or emit light themselves, which also contributes to the color. A viewer's perception of the object's color depends not only on the spectrum of the light leaving its surface, but also on a host of contextual cues, so that color differences between objects can be discerned mostly independent of the lighting spectrum, viewing angle, etc. Although Aristotle and other ancient scientists had already written on the nature of light and color vision, it was not until Newton that light was identified as the source of the color sensation. In 1810, Goethe published his comprehensive theory of colors, in which he ascribed physiological effects to color that are now understood as psychological. In 1801, Thomas Young proposed his Trichromatic Theory based on the observation that any color could be matched with a combination of three lights. His theory was later refined by James Clerk Maxwell and Hermann von Helmholtz. The ability of the human eye to distinguish colors is based upon the varying sensitivity of different cells in the retina to the light of different wavelengths. Humans are trichromatic. The retina contains three types of color receptor cells or cones. One type, relatively distinct from the other two, is most responsive to light that is perceived as blue or violet with wavelengths around 450 nanometers. Cones of this type are sometimes called short wavelength cones, S-cones, or blue cones. Colors vary in several different ways, including hue, shades of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet, saturation, brightness, and gloss. Some color words are derived from the name of an object of that color, such as orange or salmon, while others are abstract, like red. Additive color is light created by mixing together light of two or more different colors. Red, green, and blue are the additive primary colors normally used in additive color systems, such as projectors and computer terminals. Structural colors are colors caused by interference effects rather than by pigments. Color effects are produced when a material is scored with fine parallel lines formed of one or more parallel thin layers, or otherwise composed of microstructures on the scale of the color's wavelength. If the microstructures are spaced randomly, light of shorter wavelengths will be scattered preferentially to produce Tyndall effect colors. The blue of the sky, Rayleigh scattering caused by structures much smaller than the wavelength of light, in this case air molecules, the luster of opals, and the blue of human irises. While most humans are trichromatic, having three types of color receptors, many animals known as tetrachromats have four types. These include some species of spiders, most marsupials, birds, reptiles, and many species of fish. Other species are sensitive to only two axes of color or do not perceive color at all. These are called dichromats and monochromats, respectively. A distinction is made between retinal tetrachromacy, having 4 pigments in cone cells in the retina compared to 3 in trichromats, and functional tetrachromacy, having the ability to make enhanced color discriminations based on that retinal difference. As many as half of all women are retinal tetrachromats. The phenomenon arises when an individual receives 2 slightly different copies of the gene for either the medium or long wavelength cones, which are carried on the X chromosome to have 2 different genes. A person must have 2 X chromosomes, which is why the phenomenon only occurs in women. Thanks for watching this episode of Adventurous Kids.